Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to my YouTube channel, Unveiling Esther. So, we're going to be continuing from where we stopped in the previous video. So, I've already gone ahead to cut my piece I made in the previous video. I went ahead to cut them, and let me get the ones I cut. Let me get the pieces I cut. Okay, so this is it. I cut them. Adding 0.5 inch allowance at the place where I'm supposed to join them. 0.5 inch allowance. Here too, you can see the same thing I did, 0.5 inch allowance. Every other place, remember we already added allowance on the shoulder and the armhole part, so we don't need to add allowance when we are cutting it out. So that's it for this one. So this is what I did also to this other patterns here. So before I start sewing, there's something I usually do. I arrange my pieces this way, and then what I do is I arrange my pieces. The first thing I do is I arrange my pieces this way, the right way it's supposed to be. And what I do is I've already created a notch on the pattern pieces, so I'm just going to pin up those notches. Okay, align them to be in the same line. Make sure that the notches are on the same line. Okay, and I pin that up. So that's it. I pin this up, and I'm going to do the same to this one. So I've pinned both of them. I've pinned them, as you can see. I've pinned them. So that's for the back part, and I'm going to do the same thing to the front. Okay, so what I do is I'm just going to align it together. See this? I'm going to place this on the sides. After doing this, after aligning them this way, I created a notch at the underbust, so I'm just going to pin. Did you see that? So after aligning them this way, I'm just going to pin them together. I'm going to take this part and align at the notch area, and I'm going to pin. Okay, then, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to align this right side to right side, and I'm going to pin it together. This makes my work very easy while I'm sewing. Okay, when I want to start sewing, it makes it so easy, so I don't have to start bringing parts and being confused, because sometimes these parts can confuse someone. Okay, so I've pinned that together. The same thing I'm going to do for my lining, but I want to cut out my padding. Okay, so I'm going to be removing the pins, removing the pattern. I'm going to keep this aside. I'm going to be removing the patterns. Keep it aside too. So I want to cut out my padding. What I'll do is I'm going to bring my wording and then whichever way you want to place it, you can do that. And then I'm going to place this on top. So I won't be padding my main fabric, I'm going to be padding my lining. So I'm going to place this here. Let's adjust this properly. I'm going to be placing this here. So this is how I cut it. I'm just going to take note of this point where the notch is as my under bust, okay? Because that's where your padding stops. So I'm going to cut that straight out. After cutting that, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out this part. Exactly the same shape. Can you see that? Exactly the same shape. So after doing this like this, then I'm going to cut this out. Just to take note of where the neck ends. I'm going to remove this. And then I'm going to cut this straight down. Can you see that? So what I usually do for the midpoint is that I go ahead and create a curve there. To give it that illusion of that curviness. You can see how it is now. So this is what I do to it. Okay, this is the padding for my lining, the middle piece. So when there is light, I'm going to place it like this, exactly at that point, and I'm going to use my iron to attach it together. Okay, this is a very soft wording. Just need something soft. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out my padding for this piece, for the side front. The same thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be folding this into two, and I'm going to place it here. I'm going to place it. I'm going to take note too. I'm going to take note too of that midpoint, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take note of the under bust point line, and I'm just going to fold this over at that line. Fold this over so that I can get a straight point. I'm going to fold this over. I'm not going to cut everything totally. That's for that. Let me shift this in a bit so I can curve this point out. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take note of the measurements from the shoulder to this point where this pad ended. So I have 8.75, and I'm going to measure that here, 8.75, but I'm going to be using 8. Okay, I'm going to be removing this 0.75 and I'm going to be using 8. So let me just take note of that. Okay, so that's where my pad is going to stop. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop there. Okay, let me just cut this out. Okay, then our pad stopping here. So it's white, so it's not going to show. So what I will just do is I'm just going to create a mark here. Okay, then we remove this. The next thing I'm going to do now is to carve out the curve for my pad. I'm just going to place my rule this way. Can you see that? And I'm going to cut it out. Let me get the small bit. Let's cut it out, following the shape. I see that. So our pad is ready for this side. Okay, so let me show you what it looks like from there. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see what it looks like? So that's that. I'm going to be using a marker. Let me use this to just give it a little mark to show that that's the part. Okay, that's the part that is facing the joining part. Okay, so this is it. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to attach this to the side piece. Okay, after doing this with my iron, I'm going to do that later, and I'm going to come back and show you the next step. Thank you. Okay, let me show you how I attach my padding, my wadding to my fabric. So first of all, I'm going to be pressing this. Okay, you can see my setting is on linen. Okay, that's the hottest setting. So in just few seconds I have this. Since I got this particular machine, it has changed my life. Okay, so it has this thing now. Okay, it has changed my life. So I'm going to be using a little bit of steam. You can see that it has ironed it. So the next thing I'm going to do is, this time around, I'm going to be placing this on the underbust line, just like that. Make sure you check for this. The shiny part is the part that sticks to the clothes. So that is what you do. Okay, and then close it. Within seconds, you see that it will attach it smoothly and easily. Okay. All right, can you see this? It's ready, it's properly attached. Sometimes when it sticks to the material, it extends beyond this, so what you just do is just to trim it off. Okay, I'll be trimming that off later. So the next thing now is to do the sides. First of all, I'm going to be ironing both of them, pressing them at a time. That's the advantage of this machine. Helps you save time. Time you used to be ironing only one. So time you'll be using to iron only just one. I'm going to use it to iron both of them. And in seconds, it doesn't waste time. This is also called the stoning machine. Okay. So I use it for ironing too. And attaching. So I'm going to be placing this here on the fabric. I want to do both of them at a time. So I'm just going to, remember we marked out the parts where it goes to this part where we're going to be joining. We marked it out with a marker, okay, to indicate it so that it will be easy. When you're placing your padding, it just goes right there without any difficulty. You can see how it's properly placed. So I'm going to be doing this at a time. Sorry, I just had the call. So we're going to continue from where I stopped. So this is what I do. I'm going to wait for it to stick just a few seconds, and you can see, very easy. Can you see that? It just sticks to it. It's very easy and smooth. With this method, you can also use it for thicker wording, those very thick ones. This machine can handle it very, very well. So if it's something that you have not thought of having, it really makes your work easier. Try as much as you can. If you can save up the money, please save up and buy it. It's very, very nice. It's very nice. It has really helped me a lot. It has really helped me a lot. I don't know, there's some lining there you get. Sometimes it feels so difficult for you to iron it. So with this kind of machine, you are sure that you can get what you want, the best at what you want. Okay, see, the heat is stronger than a normal iron. Can you see that? Can you see? So that's it. Hello everyone. So let's go to the sewing part. Let's get to the sewing part. So now this is the front part. Okay, so like I did earlier, I've already pinned this, okay, together, so it makes my work easier. What I'm going to do is, now I'm going to join these two pieces together, aligning them. So I'm going to be using 1/2 inch allowance. I'm using a seam guide. This is one of my secrets, a seam guide. It's not so expensive. I think around 3,000 naira if you order it, then plus delivery fee. Let me just say that about 6,000 for everything. So at 1/2 inch now. It's It's at half inch. So I'm just going to place it at that half-inch point. Place my seam guide there, then everything goes easily. So I'm going to start sewing now. I'm going to start sewing now. I'm placing this. Can you see that? It just makes my work easier. So can you see that? Just align it as you sew. Don't be in a hurry. Gradually, you're going to get there. Remember I told you I'm going to be padding only the parts where the lining, rather. I'm going to be padding only the lining. Remember I told you that. So I'm working on the lining. You can see that it ended the same place. So the same thing I did here, I'm going to be doing it on the other side. So see you after I've done that. Okay, so after doing the second part, this is what we have. I'm going to be removing this pin here. And you're going to see our results. Can you see this? Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like now. Can you see it? This is what it looks like. Can you see that? Can you see how neatly done it is? Can you see it? So this is a soft wadding, so it will stand, okay? But it's not going to be so firm like the hard wadding. You can see how neat it is. You can see how beautiful this looks. So after doing that, I'm going to be notching it. I'm going to be notching it. All the way up. And I'm going to stop at the under bust point. These other parts can lay flat. Please ignore my baby. There's no one to hold that, so I have to keep the holding. What is it? What is it, sweetie? Hmm? Cutie pie baby, what is it? What is it? Okay, so after sewing it, this is how it turned out to be. You can see how beautiful it is. You can see how beautiful it is. Can you see this? Can you see the bust laying perfectly well? Okay, perfectly curved out. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be top stitching this. Okay, stop top stitching it so that the inside relaxes. So I'm going to be top stitching it to this part, the side part. And I'm going to top stitch it close to the stitch. Make sure that the inside is facing, the allowance inside is facing the side so that you can sit on top of it. So I'm going to be doing the same thing here on this other side, what I just did. I'm going to be doing the same thing here. I'm done top stitching this part. You can see how it's looking. You can see that. So the next thing, I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to pick up the back part of my lining. So all the steps I'm taking, I'm still going to do it for my main fabric, okay? So I'll be using my seam guide so that everything will be equal on every side. As you sew, you arrange it. Can you see that? So after doing this, I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to top stitch this like we did before. You're going to top stitch to the side. So I'll be moving this. I'm going to top stitch it. So the same thing I did here, I'm going to be doing on the other side. Make sure you cut off your threads when you are done. After this, I'm going to press it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so after I finished with the lining, I also sewed this part, okay? The main fabric. So I've done the sewing. You can see the cup area. You can see the cup area. I've sewn it and it's sitting pretty. This also have been sewn, the back part have been sewn. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to sew. I cut long strips. This is going to be used for the lacing at the back. Okay, so I cut long strips of this fabric. One of them I'm going to be using it. One of them I'm going to be using it to. One of them I'm going to be using one of them to create the lacing loop. Okay, then the other two I'm going to join them together to create a long strip, because the fabric is not actually so long. So that's what I'm going to do. So right now I'm going to be sewing this to create the loop. I'm going to be making it tiny. Just ignore the sound coming out of my machine. I think I need to fix a part. There's a part I need to fix. I'm going to be doing that later. So this is what I'm going to do till this is what I'm going to be doing till I get to the end of this fabric, and I'm going to be joining this together and doing the same thing. So I'm done making the two laces, one for the loop and one for the lacing. Okay, I'm done making both of them. This one is for the loop. You can see that it's smaller. I made it a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. Can you see that? So let's move to the next step. The next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be turning my neck. So as usual, I'll be using my seam guide. So I'm going to be turning my neckline. Remember, we padded only the lining. That's how I want it to be. I'm going to align this together. Please and please always work with your pin. It's very, very important. It's very, very important. Always work with your pin. It makes your work beautiful and neat. Okay, So I'm going to be pinning this. I'm going to be pinning this round the neck. You can see the fabric is not, it's fraying already. It's fraying already. So ignore this part, it's fraying. Just ignore this part. Let me adjust the camera a bit so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm pinning this all the way up, and I'll come back. So I'm done pinning everything. As you can see, please work with your pin, it's very important. You can see I'm done pinning everything. So now I'm going to start. Sorry, I fell my microphone. So okay, so let's continue. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be turning the neckline now. So I'm going to measure ½ inch here. Make sure from the point where the needle is to this place is ½ inch. Then I'm going to start sewing. Okay, so after doing that, you can see the sharp edge here. So you're going to look at this midpoint because it's a very deep V. So you're going to look at this midpoint now. Let me take off the pins. Always cut off your threads. So when your client is putting on the clothes, threads won't be hanging out. So the next thing you're going to do now is, you see this midpoint here, where this V is, you're going to notch that point to get a very smooth. Okay, you're going to notch that point and notch the rest of the fabric, the neckline. You notch the rest of the neckline. Be careful not to cut through your sewn work. Okay, so after notching it, you can decide to trim it off a bit. You can reduce the allowance. Okay, so the neck part won't be bulky. Okay, so after doing that, we're going to top stitch, but I'm going to keep this aside first, and I'm going to turn the neck for the back because I want both of them to have the same allowance. So let me just sew that first, then before I take off my seam guide. So everything will be in line. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to turn it just like that. See how easy it is to use the seam guide. It just makes your work perfect. So whatever allowance that you're using, you just take the same allowance, the same. All you just have to do is to guide your fabric to touch the end of this, and before you know it, you're done. You have, can you see how even it is? You're not seeing any parts bigger than any parts. Let me turn this other side so you can see can you see that? Very neat and equal. So that's the advantage of using a seam guide. It's not so expensive. It's something you should go for. It helps you a lot. Okay, so I'm still going to do the same thing to this. I'm going to notch. After notching, I'm going to trim some parts of the allowance out. So I'm going to take off my seam guide now. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to stop stitch on the lining, okay, so that it will not come out at the front. Okay, this will help to push in the lining. If you leave it that way, to come out. Can you see that? So I'm done with this one, and I'm going to do the same thing for this one and also the front parts. Okay, so I'm done top stitching. You can see how neat it is. I'm done top stitching it. You can see how neat it is. Okay, remember we are top stitching to the lining, not the fabric itself. Please don't make the mistake of top stitching on your fabric. So let's see what it looks like. Can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? So I'm going to take it to the ironing table now, and I'm going to iron this out. Okay, I'm going to iron this out so that it lays very well, especially this V part. Okay, I'm going to iron this out. You can see how neat it is. You can see how neat it is, and you see how the lining gave it a very good support. Can you see that? So I'll go to the ironing table and do that later. But this next thing I'm going to do after that, you're going to see I've already turned the lining with this one too. So I'm just going to press every one of them and I'll bring it back. Pressing your work while you work is your fabric while you work is very important because it makes the work come out so beautiful. So I'll be right back. I've finished pressing it. Finish pressing it. You can see how smooth it is. Okay, so we're going to continue from here, and you can see how, let me show you the front now, the neckline, how beautiful it's looking. Can you see? Very smooth, very smooth. Okay, so after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the lining by 1.5 inch. Okay, I'm going to be reducing the lining by 1.5 inch. So first of all, I'm going to take my chalk and I'm going to fold this into two to make it easier for me. Okay, I'll fold this into two, and then I'll be measuring 1.5 round. Okay, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5 inch, and here too 1.5 inch. I'm going to join these lines together. Okay, then I'm going to cut it off. So the same thing I'm going to do for my back piece. I'm going to be separating the lining, both of them. I'm going to be reducing 1.5 too. Just using this to mark it out. Okay. So after marking it out, cutting both of them at the same time, 1.5 inch off. Okay, so that's it. So now I'm going to be turning it this way. I'm going to be turning the ends. Okay, so to be right side facing right side. Okay, right side facing right side. Then you're going to fold this. You're going to fold this to get the midpoint here. You're going to mark it out, or better still, notch that part. The same thing you're going to do here. Fold this into two and notch, so you know you're placing it on the middle part. You know, as we removed 1.5 inch, it's going to make the shape, it's going to alter the shape a bit for the lining, so that way these parts might not be as complete as it's supposed to be, because we reduced it by 1.5 inch. Can you see that? Okay, so I'm going to be pinning this all around. I'm going to do this for all the pieces, and I'm going to pin it all around. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. Can you see that? That's why it's important you get the midpoint. When you get the midpoint, be able to align. You can see that we have the same allowance left on both sides. Okay, the same thing left on both sides, the same thing left on both sides. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be turning this in by, I'm going to be using 0.25 inch. Okay, 0.25 inch, just a little. So okay, so we can see I've done that. So I'm going to do that for the remaining parts. Okay, then I'll come back. Okay, so I've done it for all. I've sewn the down parts of all of them. So I've done everything now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sorry, I had a call. So let's continue. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to align this point, the armhole, okay, to balance up the outfit. So I'm going to align it. What do you notice? You notice that this part, okay, is more. This part is more than the lining. It's more than the lining. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to hold it by the side and I'm going to trim off this part. So it aligns with the lining. Then I'm now going to hold the sides for the front. This part, I'm going to be doing this part last for the back. So I'm going to, this is the back piece. So for the front, I'm going to do this, what I just did now. I'm going to do this for the front. Align it. Can you see that? Align it together. Align it together. Okay, and I'm going to pin it too. The same thing. I'm going to align it and pin it. So I'm going to pin it together. Okay, so after this, like I did for the other parts, I'm going to balance this up, push this in so that I don't cut more than I'm supposed to cut. I'm going to trim this off. I'm going to do the same thing here. Push this in so that I don't cut more than I'm supposed to. So so that the bust parts can relax properly. I'm going to cut this off. Okay. Yes, so we're going to be holding the sides. I like finishing my sides this way with a very tiny, I think it's even less than 0.25, just very tiny allowance just to hold the edges. Okay, less than 0.25 inch. Can you see that? Can you see that? So I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, and I'll come back. So I'm done doing this. I'm done holding the sides. So I'm going to turn this to the front through the armhole. I'll go ahead and press it. I'll go ahead and press it with my iron to make it very smooth. Turn this to the front. Okay, you can see how neatly done it is. So I'm going to go ahead and press it on my ironing table. I'll press it on my ironing table. Can you see this? Can you see this? See how neat it is? See how neat it is? Can you see this? It's neat. So I'm going to be ironing out this part. See the back. Can you see how neat it is? So I'm showing you a very good method to make your outfit to come out very neat. Neatness is my priority when it comes to an outfit. I don't take chances. I don't leave my work dirty and unkept. Okay, so I encourage you to be too. So let's join the shoulders first. Okay, let's join it. You can actually join it later. Okay, you can actually join it later, but I want to join it now. I want to join it now. So we'll soon be done with this outfit. Let's join the shoulders. So you're going to place this. You're going to place this wrong side facing wrong side. Can you see it? Wrong side facing the wrong side. Let me adjust this so that you can see it very well. Wrong side facing the wrong side. Then, can you see it? Wrong side facing the wrong side. Then you're going to take the last part at the back and you're going to flip this over. This will conceal the joining part of your clothes. Okay, this part we're going to join is going to help conceal it. So make sure you align it very well like I'm doing, and you pin that point more than the ½ inch allowance. The reason is that sometimes when you join this, you will notice that there's a part that pops out at the end. So to avoid that, make sure you pin it more than the allowance you're holding. That way it stays very close together. It stays very close together. You pin it, and I'm just going to pin the rest. I'm just going to pin the rest. If you didn't get this part, just play the video again and you're going to get it. Okay, so I'm going to pin this part through and join it together. Make sure all the lines, all of them are aligned. Okay, all of them are in line. Let them not one be longer than one or shorter than one at the top there, so that when you join it by the allowance, it's constant everywhere and it lays properly. Okay, so this is it. Now I'm going to use 1/2 inch allowance to sew this. Okay, you're going to place it 1/2 inch allowance. So this is 1/2 inch. Make sure you sew that end very well. Then you go ahead and stitch it together. Okay, let me take off my pins. Can you see this? After stitching it together, you just flip it over and see, this is what you will get. Can you see how this part just laid perfectly? Can you see it? Didn't see any bulging at this part. There's no bulging at this part. You can see how neat it is. It just aligned, looks seamless. Okay, it's the same thing I'm going to be doing to the other side, and I'll come back. So I've gone to iron it out. You can see how smooth it is, how neat it is. Can you see how smooth and neat it is? So the next thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be forming our loops. Okay, we're going to be forming our loops. I'll be right back. So the next thing we're going to be doing now is to fix the loop. Okay, so I didn't actually, for the back, I didn't hold the sides because of I want to fix the loop neatly. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this way. I'm going to turn it this way. Okay, let's pass this all out. Okay, and this is the point where the loop is meant to be. The point where the loop is meant to be is this point. Please don't be confused. This is the armhole part. This is the armhole part. So this is where we're fixing our loops. Okay, so I'll be measuring 2.5 inch for each loop. 2.5 inch for each loop. So After measuring it, I'm going to be cutting it out 2.5 inch for each loop. So I'm going to be cutting it out and I'll come back. Okay, welcome back. I have cut my loops. They're all 2.5 inches long. 2.5 inches long. So like I said earlier, I'm going to be fixing it 1.5 inch apart. 1.5 inch apart. So let's get to it. So I already turned this fabric to this part, okay? Like I showed you, I already turned it to this part. So the next thing I'm going to do is, those my loops I cut, I'm just going to align them here. So the first thing I'm going to do is, as I'm aligning it, I am sewing. Okay, so this is how I'm going to do it. I'll fix it in here at the edge. Here. Okay, then I'm going to sew on it. I'm sewing it with 1/2 inch. I'm sewing it 1/2 inch, so I have to push this in a bit since it's just 2.5 inch. If I sew with 1/2 inch, it's just going to be left with a very small hole to pass the lace through. So I'm going to push it in a bit and then make sure that I'm filling it at the other part. Okay, then sew. See that? You see how I stitched on it like 3 times, I think so. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to measure the next point, which is here, 1.5 inch. Let me just measure it out. I'm going to be marking it out throughout. 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch, all 1.5 inch apart. 1.5 inch. Okay, so I'm done marking it out, so it's going to be easier now for me. What I'm just going to do is to fold it like this, like I did earlier. I'm going to put it in at that point. Then I'm going to sew. As you're sewing, you're going to be feeling it, okay? So when you get to those points, you remember a rope is going to be passed through and it's going to have a lot of tension. So you have to double stitch on it so that it doesn't rip off when the person ties the lacing. Okay, it doesn't rip off, so it will be intact. So the same thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to push it in just like I did for others a bit. Okay, so after creating my loops, Okay, this is how it turned out to be. This is it. Can see that neatly done. I've done it for the both sides. So sorry I couldn't record that. I thought my phone was recording, but it wasn't. So I've done this. Okay. After doing this now, I also cut my sleeve. I also cut my sleeve. So this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see. It's a flare sleeve, but I'm going to be attaching a band to it at the end of the day. So first of all, let me let me join the sleeve first. I've already pinned up everything. I've pinned everything down. You can see around the sleeve. So it's going to be easy for me while I'm fixing it. Okay. So I'm going to be using 1/2 inch to join it together. I want actually so I'm going to finish my hand roll, sewing it together. So after sewing it, I'm going to check how it looks like on the other side. Make sure that there is no fold or rumpling anywhere. Okay, so after joining it, I'm going to check to confirm if there's any squeeze or fold. If there's any squeeze or fold, then I'll go back, and because her armhole is quite small, she's on the slim side. She's slim, so her armhole is small. So I've checked it and it's fine, it's okay. So I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to join it together too. And I'll come back. So I'm done with that. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to create my gathers at the end of the sleeve. Okay, I want to create my gathers at the end of the sleeve. so that I can gather it and fix the cuff. See the cuff. So I can fix this cuff. I've already woven every part. So at ST's Fashion Place, we give the best. Okay, we are very sure of in neat work. So let's get to it. So how I create my gather stitch is that I loosen up my tension. I loosen it up a lot. Okay, then my allowance is 1.5 inch, so I'm going to start my gathered stitch 1.5 inch. Okay, because I don't want any gathers around that area. I'm going to start my gather stitch at 1.5 inch. So let me just take note of that on my fabric. Then I'm going to start my gather stitch. So again, this is going to help us. The same guide is going to help us. So that when you are pulling your fabric, you know that it's within the same measurement. So the is going to gather it in the same measurement. So I'm using the lowest tension 2 on this part of my machine. On this part of my machine, I'm going to be using it the lowest tension. So let's get to it. I'm going to be drawing it as I sew. So I usually use an elastic for my machine as the rope, machine rope, so that it makes it easier for me in case I want to switch to motor. I can just remove it. That's another hack. Instead of you using a normal rope that you have to cut it, I can use an elastic. So as I'm gathering it, I'm going to be drawing it so that the tension will be more free. So I want to mark out 1.5 each also at the end, so that I'll stop my gather stitch at that point. So I've marked it out at that out. So I'm going to be drawing it, okay? Okay, I've gotten to the 1.5 inch mark and I've stopped there. So I'm going to release it a bit. Okay, I'll allow the rope to be a bit long and then I cut. Okay, so how do I gather all this? I'm going to start by pulling this. I'm going to start by pulling this from the under. Okay, the down thread is the one that gathers, that does the gathering. You just pull from the down, the one that does the gathering. So when you pull a bit, I'm going to be tying this here. Then I'm going to pull from this other part. I'm going to pull on this other part. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my band. Okay, this is my band here, and I'm going to place it at this point. Okay, this is right side to right side. Okay, I'm going to place it and I'm going to pin. Don't forget, your pins are very, very important. I'm going to pin this. You pin it. When you get to that point where you started, you pin to that point. Okay, let me get this thread out of the way. So you pin to that point. That's the 1.5 mark you choose. Then the same thing I'm going to do here. I'm going to go here now. I'm going to go here and I'm going to pin to that point. Okay, can you see this? I'm going to pin to that point. Can you see that? So what we have now is this. Let me place it properly. What we now have is this. So what you're going to do is, I already sealed this end, so I don't have to bother about that. Now I'm going to drag this. I'm going to pull this. Pull it so that it gets to the size of this band. Can you see that? I'm going to pull it and adjust it to the size of the band. Adjust it to the size of the band. Once I get that, once I get the size, you can see it's the same size with it now. Once I get to that size, I'm going to make sure that they are even. Try to make it even so that it doesn't look like one part is more gathered than the other. So after doing that, I'm going to tie this. I'm going to tie this. Okay, so I finished tying it. Then I cut off the excess thread. The next thing now I'm going to be doing is to just join it together. Okay, join it together. Lay this flat on your fabric. Lay this flat. I'm going to be using 0.5 inch and I'm going to pass this under. Okay, you see that? 0.5 inch. Then I'm going to start sewing on it. As you sew, press it down a bit, okay? Because you know this is gathered stitch, so for you to maintain the same gathers while you sew, try to press it down a bit so that the gather stays. Can you see this? So I'm done sewing it. I'm done sewing it. Let me cut off the thread and take off the pins. Wow, can you see it? How neat it came out. Can you see it? So this is it. I'm going to be doing the same thing on the other side and I'll come back and show you how it is. Okay, see the back, see the front. Can you see it, how properly laid it is? So it's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. by the time I'm done with it. Okay, I'll be right back. So I'm back. Um, I finished doing the both sides. As you can see, this is one of the ends, and this is the second part. I'm done with both hands. So the next thing we're going to do is to join it to the bodies. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this over to the wrong side, and I'm going to join it to the bodies by 1.5 inch. 1.5 inch. 1.5 inch. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to align this part of my sleeve. I used my pin to hold that down. I'm going to use my pin also here to hold this part down. So I'm going to sew it by the allowance I used here is let me see, okay, 1.25. That's the allowance I'm using. So I'm going to place my seam guide on 1.25 so that everything is just going to align. Okay, can you see that? I'm going to start sewing. Okay, so let me turn this over to the front so you see what it looks like. Can you see this? So after holding it, this is what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like. Beautiful, right? Can you see that? So I'm going to be doing that for the second part. Then the next thing you're going to be seeing is the final look.
Oh, beautiful people, this is the final look of our crop top. You can see how beautiful and gorgeous it's looking. Please, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do that. That's the only way you can help me grow. Please, I'm not asking you for money, just please subscribe to my YouTube channel and do well to please share this video. You can see how detailed this tutorial is. I don't think I missed any part. Please, and I don't think I've seen any channel that has exposed all these things for nothing, for no fee. Please, I beg you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's the way you encourage me to post more interesting videos. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow me on my social media platforms: Facebook, Esther Ogak OK, unveiling_Esther on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching.